Hey everyone, very good evening and a very good morning and a good afternoon, depending on where you are tuning into for this particular event for today. And I am excited and nervous, and I have some notes for all of you. And before we get started, I would encourage all of you to be on screen. And with that, you all have decided to spend this Saturday evening or morning, whatever it is, with us for the next 1 hour. So that's precious for us, and we will ensure that you have some key takeaways that you can walk away from with this session. Okay. And before I move any further, I have a question for the super intellectual bunch over here. I am presuming all of us are PhD or wanting to get into PhD or finished PhD, wherever we are in our journeys. Have you ever felt to run away from your PhD? I'm the first one to raise my hand. Anybody else? I see Akhil, I see Samvit. Okay. You can just raise your hand with the emoji as well if you want to. Anybody? Okay. I see others also raise their hand. Okay. Great, great, great. So the point is that it's very common to feel that way of having that second thought of running away from your PhD. And the speakers also felt that way. So Samvit also raised his hand. And with so many hands raised, we can realize that it's a common feeling across all of us. Okay. And I want to say that we are less than 2% of the population worldwide who chose a profession like this that breaks us every day. Yet we show up every day to ensure that we are not broken. Okay. So wherever you are in your PhD journey right now, I want you to pay some reverence for your own journey and show some, clap in the emoji for showing that reverence. Okay. And almost all of us had to go through these situations in life where we felt stuck in career, confused about our next move in career, and not being in the right career is taxing emotionally, physically, mentally, right? I guess all of you would agree. And that can alter our personality for good or bad. Okay. And so it's a no-brainer that our work should be something that should make us feel good about ourselves and help us express our best. But that is always easier said than done. And all the more now because there's so much information, there's so many options, there is overload of information, and so much to consume, so difficult to process. Because as said by Clay Shirky, a consultant and an author, it's not information overload, but it's filter failure. And we don't know what to believe in, we don't know what to implement and what to trash. So the best thing you can do here is to hear out from the journeys of people who have traveled the path prior to you, right? Now, before we hear from our speakers, I want to set the context right. This session is going to last for an hour. We will be taking questions from all of you, and that would be towards the end of the session, last 20 minutes. So please spark your questions and be rest assured all your questions are going to be answered. And in between the discussion that we have, if you think you have something valuable to add, please raise your hand, and I would love to get you on the panel and share your thoughts. And with that, there's only one golden rule, only one golden rule throughout this session. That is to shed our judgmental mind. Okay, with PhD, we do become a lot judgmental. So please shed that judgmental mind and speak and listen from your heart today so that we can spark some real and stimulating discussions that helps us to open up to things in ways that we have never thought about earlier. And with that, I'm going to dive straight into introducing the speakers for the session. I believe whoever are here, of course, know them, but then it's a unique, one-of-a-kind session for me because on this panel, we have a speaker who is in the industry, we have a speaker who is in academia, and who is a speaker who has gone the solopreneur way. So the entire spectrum is covered, okay? And with that, when it comes back to the speakers, the first speaker I'm going to speak about is, in my mind, he registers as the "we don't bite" guy. Okay. And though not sure how true it is for his dog. And yes, if you have been following him, then you know it's Samvit. And his stories from PhD to transitioning into job has always struck a chord with his followers and supporters. A lab manager and a technical team lead at Meta, we will hear from him in a short while. And the next speaker is a staunch believer in we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. And is also a professor in global health innovation, driving development and growth across key national and international partners, clients, and is an academic career mentor. He has mentored 50 PhDs to help them launch their academic career, and his own journey of becoming a full-time professor in less than 15 years at 40 positions him rightly for guiding others wanting to build a similar career path. And if you haven't heard his TEDx talk, uh, which is titled as Imagine Aging Playfully in the City, I would request you to do so right after this session, where his call to action is let's reclaim our right to play, which personally strikes a chord with me. And with that, I'm bringing the spotlight back on me now. If we are meeting for the first time, I'm Rima, a scientist turned career elevation coach. Landed myself 2 jobs at the peak of recession at Honeywell and General Electric. And right now, I'm helping out PhDs and other students with their journeys. Okay. So with that, I am coming back to Dr. Emmanuel Saclays. I hope I have pronounced the name right because I went back to ChatGPT, practiced it for so many times. So if I've pronounced it right, the credit goes to me. If I've pronounced it wrong, the credit goes to ChatGPT. Okay. So I'm going to open the conversation with Emmanuel, and I want you to start sharing your journey and what made you to make the choices and how that has led you to what you are right now. So I want you to give a brief synopsis of that whole journey.
Sure. Thank you very much, first of all, Rima, and well done for bringing Sambit and me together in this exciting session. Also, well done on getting the name right. Everyone actually calls me either Emmanuel or the guy with a strange surname. So, you can pick whichever you want. You've already mentioned a bit about the background, but I kind of always knew when I started my PhD that I wanted an academic career. So really focused into that. And during my PhD studies, I was looking what skills do I need to have so by the time I graduate, I can get an academic job, and in fact, managed to get one before my PhD graduation. Went straight into a lectureship. Like everyone, it has been a journey with a lot of struggles. When you try something new that you don't know, you do a lot of mistakes. I've probably done all the mistakes that are there to make, but I've learned from them. And part of my journey was actually getting some amazing mentors along the way that helped me guide through this process. So a lot of my PhD students, most of them actually, they've get jobs right when they finish, or even before they finish the PhDs. Most they want to stay in academia, some they go to the industry. And I've been seeing online that there were a lot of people struggling. So about 6 to 9 months ago, I decided to do something about it. And since then, I started posting on LinkedIn and other social platforms about tips and insights that I've used, my PhD students, postdocs used, and I mean, since then I've helped a lot other people doing that. So really, I see it more as my mission to, if you like, provide some insider knowledge from someone sitting on the other side of the fence on what it is like, what we think, how you can impress hiring committees, what you should know, what they tend to tell you about the process, and provide a guiding light. For those who want to stay in academia, I just want to say that a great thing about the PhD is that gives you that prerogative to be able to apply for academia, industry, third sector. Also, you can have your startup and create your own business. And each one has its pros and cons. There isn't a perfect place. And it's great that we are here, 3 that represent these different areas. So I think we're all here today just to share some tips. And yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And we will be coming back to you shortly. And let me go back to Sambit now. And Sambit, what I picked up from your profile is you finished your PhD sometime in 2017. And now you're in Meta, right? So
Yeah.
how's been your journey of transition? And why is it industry for you and not academia?
Okay, so the thing is, I ended up doing a PhD because this was something I wanted to do since I was 10 years old. When I was 10 years old, an uncle of mine had gifted me A Brief History of Time. And that was like my Bible while I was growing up. every science exhibition that I participated in, every working or non-working model of any exhibit that I was a part of involved black holes or wormholes or charts depicting time travel, what is possible, what is not possible. So everything was based on a brief history of time. And all I knew back then was I wanted to be an astrophysicist. And so my entire academic path was becoming an astrophysicist. So normally what people would do after their high school and higher secondary is you would do a undergrad in physics, and then you do a master's in physics, and then you do a PhD in physics. So I ended up doing a master's in physics, and then I interned with an astrophysicist at the Indian Institute of Science for about 6 months or 8 months. It's been a while. And then I realized I don't love astrophysics anymore. I don't want to get into details why that happened, but I did not want to do astrophysics anymore. So for about 2 years after my master's, I was involved with a friend's startup. I was a communication strategist. That was my first experience working outside academia. So it was a company that built and designed and developed apps for Apple and Android. And back in the late 2000s, this was a big thing. And I was in Bangalore, and no better place to do stuff like this than Bangalore. And yeah, and soon after that, I kind of freelanced startups, stuff like that. And I always knew that I was going to regret not doing a PhD because, childhood dreams are childhood dreams after all, and you don't give up on them easily. And I decided to quit my industry job, which paid me a whole lot of money, to settle for a PhD that paid me about 5 to 6 times less than what I was making. No regrets, absolutely none. But I knew I didn't want to do astrophysics anymore. And I was trying different options. And eventually, when my PhD supervisor got in touch with me and he pitched his project plans, I was instantly hooked, because we were going to make nanomaterials to clean, water, to purify water, and to make more efficient LEDs. So I was literally going to make the world a cleaner and brighter place. And that kind of got me hooked onto it. And that's how I ended up doing a PhD. But the thing is, I knew that I always wanted to get back to industry because I enjoyed my role in industry. And while I was navigating my PhD, I realized that I am actually gaining skills that are useful in industry. So each year of my PhD, I acquired something new, and I felt that, okay, in my first year, I would be useful in, say, a cement company or a concrete manufacturing company. In my second year, I felt I would be useful in, I don't know, a paints company or a company that makes dyes and pigments. In the third year, I felt I would be useful in an LED company. So it changed all the time. And while I was finishing, I started taking interest in the life sciences as well. And I felt that I need to learn a little bit more of life sciences techniques and understand cancer biology a little bit, because it kind of really got my attention and I really was passionate about it. That is why I ended up doing 2 postdocs after my PhD. So after my postdocs, I was a postdoc for about 5 years. So 3 years in South Africa, 2 years in Ireland. And at the end of the second year in Ireland, I realized that I am done. And I have contributed everything there is to science. I have made sort of a mark in my community. I am at a stage where if I walk away from academia at this point, I would walk away happy. And I did walk away happy. And here I am as a lab manager and program manager, technical team lead, whatever you want to call it, at Meta.
Okay, so the journey looks a lot more intentional. Okay, and maybe there were some obstacles that you didn't expect in the way, but then you moved past them, and your preferences and choice of subjects also kept evolving and changing, right?
Exactly. So it's okay that, say when you join your PhD, you have an objective in mind in your first year, but then your second year, your objective completely changes because you've learned something new and something different, and that's now interesting to you. And then you focus on that. And then your third year, you have something else which you find interesting. It's completely fine to go through this process. And this is one of the things which I usually tell PhD students: don't worry about what you want to do after your PhD, but just have a general idea of what you'd like to do once you're done. Allow these changes to be a part of the process.
Right, Samvit. So On that note, I want to shift gears and move to Emmanuel. And I want to ask him that in academia, we all know that, but you are the insider here to confirm that the job market is this map, right? So even if you have the best intentions to get people placed in academia, how difficult would it be for you to do that versus if you were to place someone in the industry?
Sorry, I didn't hear one word. You said the job positions in academia where?
Yeah, so the job positions that you want to place, let's put it this way, that the number of vacancies in academia
Right.
are
Okay.
much lesser than what is available in the industry, right? So when you are working with your students to get them placed in academia, the chances, the probability is much lesser than you can do it for an industry job, right? So how do you take care of that? Is that even true? Or what is your belief regarding this?
There's definitely more jobs in the industry compared to the public sector anywhere in the world if you put them together, of course.
Mhm.
But my first question is, what do you want to do? So
Right.
it's not me telling students, you should follow this career, we should follow that path. This is what I followed, therefore that's the best option. You should do it. Is more, what do you want to do? And then help them towards achieving that. In my experience, sitting in tons of academic hiring committees, usually the main reason people don't get the jobs is not because they don't have the skills or there isn't a shortage of vacancies. In the UK, we have a lot of jobs for both assistant professorships and lectureships, and quite often we fail to recruit people. It's because they don't communicate well the skills. They don't demonstrate what is the value that they will be bringing to a research lab or to a department, to a teaching course, to a research project. So it's more about selling yourself, and it's about how you do that effectively. So the vast majority, I would say 80% of people, when they fail on that, rather than the number of positions. But of course, industry is more diverse in terms of the roles, and of course, there's a lot more PhDs that they go on startup as well.
Yeah. So on that note, I want to ask you, like you said, this is the same problem with industry too. We are not able to sell ourselves the way the people see the value in it, right? It's true for academia, it's true for industry. So what do you think are the reasons that lead to this by the end of our PhDs? And what can we do to mitigate that and, not wait till we hit the wall, but take care of these skills and develop these skills? Even if the
Sure.
institute or university is not offering any help in that regard, then what is it that we can do by ourselves? What initiatives can we take as PhDs?
Yeah, I'll use the analogy of a sports team, and the key for any sports team is to have a great coach. And they've got, top athletes, they've got coaches and they've got mentors. So the first thing is to get mentors, either from within the institution that you are or outside, or peer group mentors, because they will give you these different perspectives and insider views. True, academia doesn't teach currently how to sell yourself, but generally there is, I think, a stigma in the word sales in academia, which I don't agree with, because as academics we sell all the time things. We sell ideas, we sell projects, when we apply for funding, when we recruit students. And the other thing is to start developing the skills that you'll be requiring if you want an academic positions. And if you want to become an assistant professor, you need three things: the research background, so you need the papers, you need some experience with grants, supervision of students. You need the teaching portfolio, so you need to be involved in teaching in some form, whether it is through guest lectures or helping with labs. And the other one is what we call academic service, which is more of leadership roles. And this doesn't mean leading a research group. It means taking some initiatives within your department, whether it is, you form PhD committees or you lead groups within the student union or PhD reading clubs or whatever it is, something that you can demonstrate that actually you contribute, beyond your studies and you embrace the community. There's a lot more tips, but I think these are the main ones to highlight.
Yeah, so I believe we have some 40 participants in reading us. So whoever is looking forward to an academic career, this is one clue for you to not just be focused in your PhD and just be focused on your thesis and experiments, but expand your abilities to how you can contribute to the leadership things that you can drive in your institute, which is contributing to managing events, conducting events for other PhD students, and then creating reading book clubs. And of course, there are many more, which maybe you can get in touch with Emmanuel, and maybe he shares it in his LinkedIn post as well, if you haven't been following him, okay? Now, on that note, I again want to come back to Samvit, okay? So Samvit, I have worked with corporates like General Electric, and then I moved to CSR laboratory, right? And I believe you being from India, you are aware of this scenario of CSR laboratories and then General Electric. And I could clearly see a huge difference between the work environment, the thought process, the way we think, we approach things, okay? And for me, I thrive a lot better in an environment like General Electric, which is open, there's no hierarchy, and the politics is also at its least, okay? And having worked there, I felt everyone felt truly valued. Okay. Now I want to come back to you and ask, because you have been through a similar journey, and I don't know what the smile means, but yeah, working in government labs or premier institutes in India versus companies like Meta. What is the differences that you appreciate, if any?
So, okay, look, at this point, I am more of a manager. So I'm managing my team. And when you manage a team in a company like, say, Meta or any R&D based company, you're mostly managing the engineers who are working in the labs. You're mostly managing, say, for instance, the samples coming in for characterization and testing. You're sending out POs for external characterization requests. You're managing the inventory, you're managing the day-to-days, you're making sure that the labs are all up and running, the tool health is, or the instruments are working to their optimal capacity. So these are my day-to-days. When I look back, this is exactly what I used to do as a PhD as well. And over here, I have complete freedom to do everything my own way. Whereas while I was in a PhD, obviously, you're restricted by funding, you're restricted by hierarchy, you're restricted by, say, I don't know, petty differences in opinion between different lab members. So, but when you are a PhD, you kind of figure out a way to overcome stuff like this. You've kind of, like in Hindi, you call it jugaad, which is basically what you call, there was an English term for this. It's called frugal innovation. So you learn to frugally innovate solutions. And that's how you learn how to overcome things that are thrown at you while you're doing a PhD. You overcome politics, you overcome differences in opinion, you understand how to deal with someone who doesn't really get along well with you. And, funnily enough, when you interview for industry positions, they're going to ask you these questions. How do you handle a tough boss? How do you overcome a colleague who has a difference in opinion with you? What was the most challenging situation you faced as a researcher? These are very common questions, and you have stories for all of these. So compared to all this, at this point, I'm very relaxed. I have absolutely no tensions. I don't have to worry about money. I don't have to worry about funding. If somebody needs a $22,000, instrument, I just raise a PO, because again, in a corporate environment, funding is not really an issue, and we get the job done. Our objectives are, say, for example, one project is to raise the quantum efficiencies of LEDs by a certain amount. We make sure that at the end of every quarter or at the end of every 2 quarters, we are at a certain stage where we're expected to be. People know what they have to do, and it makes my role as a manager a lot easier. You'll never come across situations like these in Indian government research institutes. Never.
Yes.
You've been through this, right? So you know what I'm talking about.
Right, right. And on that note, then let me just rephrase the question I asked. I believe for me, there was a mindset shift when I moved from, into the industry. And when I came back to academia, and I saw the differences, there was a mindset shift. And of course, there are people in India in academia who also have a great mindset, but the number being very less. Did you feel any shift in mindset once you moved to academia? Once you moved to industry? Because as you said, there's no running behind the funding, right? So things are more facilitated so that you achieve the goal. But when you're in academia, it's a struggle. There's a lot of struggle for to get one thing done. So
Yeah.
on that note, would you agree? And what was the mindset shift, if any, between academia and industry? It can be very subjective though. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot depends on where you've done your PhDs from.
Yeah.
The opinions that you have, the thoughts that go through your head, the experiences that you have during your PhD, a lot depends on where you've done it from, how your supervisor or your thesis advisor was with you, your relationship with your supervisor, your relationship with your colleagues and other members of faculty staff. And this is why this can vary. I had a very good thesis advisor. I was his first thesis advisor. I mean, sorry, he was my first, I was his first PhD student. And we got along really well because when I grew, he grew as well. When I published, he published. When when my papers got citations, his papers got citations. So it was a beautiful relationship that way. Initially, it was difficult because I was a physicist moving into a chemistry lab, and he was a chemist through and through. So there were slight differences in understanding and communication. But then by the time we were in our second year, we were like a beautifully synchronized wave. But we weren't, on the best of terms with a lot of other people in the department. And this would cause a lot of friction. And we had to figure out a way to navigate these obstacles. When I moved to South Africa to do my first postdoc, my PI over there had no problems with funding. And we had a beautiful system in place where you want to do an experiment, you book a slot, you do the experiment, and then you continue that with analysis, characterization, stuff like this. And you collect your data, you publish. If you wanted to buy instruments, you applied for project funding. And I did apply for project funding. I won quite a lot of money in project funding, in grants, which I was able to use to set up a new lab in South Africa. And that really helped. So because I was a postdoc, I was kind of my own supervisor. I was, my supervisor, my PI was there, but it was my project. I had freedom to run my own project. I had a PhD student who I used to supervise. And again, it was a similar relationship that I had with my PhD supervisor. Like, she was my first student. And if she grew, I grew. So it was it worked mutually that way. And it was a lot less stressful than I had gone through certain, things back in India. I didn't have to worry about, conflicting interests with other faculties. I didn't have to worry about a nagging head of the department or any of that sort. So it was kind of smooth sailing technically post PhD, but during PhD, yes, there was a lot of friction. And compared to all this, I as I said, it's a lot easier now in industry because there are things that I used to worry about are not issues at all. I have a different set of issues that I need to worry about, which are quite trivial because we have been through the grind and we have been through the process. So we know exactly how to handle those trivial issues, like deadlines and stakeholder engagement and stuff like that.
Yeah, and on that note, I just want to add, Samvit, thank you for sharing your experience of doing PhD in India. I did my PhD in India, and fortunately, I had the best of mentors, and they had done their PhD from outside. I don't know, is that the reason that they had a very different mindset of how they were treating their
No,
students?
my PhD supervisor did his everything in India itself.
Right. So yeah, it's a very personal thing how you look at your personal and professional growth. Right.
Yeah.
So on
Yeah.
that note, we cannot predict whether it would be great outside or within India, but I had a very
Yeah.
good PhD journey within India. Okay. Now on that note, I want to again come back to Emmanuel. So Emmanuel, it is Zabib who has asked us that can you provide 3 skills that needs to be mentioned during research, trade, teaching, and services. Okay, can you provide 3 skills that needs to be mentioned for in research, teaching, and services to land a job in academia? And can you elaborate on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, before answering that question, just to add on what Samvit already said, that both in academia, I suppose, in industry as well, it depends very much where you landed, because you can have institutions in academia that are very well resourced and you can get funding, and it's the same in the industry. There's a difference working in a big R&D company like Meta and in a small startup that doesn't have the funding. I think the question that was asked probably is not valid in the sense that there isn't a specific skill. You decode the job advert, you look at the requirements, what the job is asking under the research, teaching, and academic service, and you tailor your application documents to demonstrate what is the specific value you would add under those. And this is, again, one of the key mistakes 90% of the applicants, when I review job applications, do. You can tell immediately it's a blanket application that probably they've sent to other universities, other institutions, and I imagine it's the same in the industry. You know, you can tell by just reading. And it's not just the cover letter, it's also the CV. You have to tailor the CV as well. You have to use keywords from the job adverts and all the other associated documents, because quite often the hiring manager or the committee, they will not read everything word for word. They will quickly skim through it. So to answer your question, the 3 skills are what they're included in the job advert and in the specific order they're added. So for instance, if let's say you apply for a assistant professorship job, and in the job advert, the first highlight teaching, it tells you that this is a teaching-led university and they focus more on teaching. Whereas if you see another job adverts and the first thing they talk about research, we're looking for someone with research experience to grow our research, you know that this is more a recent focus. So you adjust the way you write your applications in that way.
Right, Emmanuel. And on that note, I also want you to make us understand from an academic viewpoint, how important is LinkedIn in this entire journey of applying to an academic job? We know it's very important for industry, but do professors come and see the LinkedIn profile? How LinkedIn can help you better place yourself for an academic job market? Could you shed some light on that?
Yes, it's a very good question. LinkedIn is relatively new in the academic industry. It wasn't important in the past. Now it's becoming, because as part of both the research and the academic surveys, academic engagement, you need to demonstrate the impact of your research and you need to engage with the outside world. So platforms like LinkedIn are on one hand great dissemination platforms, and you'll see a lot of projects and researchers and academics use that for that purpose. But also in terms of getting jobs, this is where you can get more inbound, interest by, posting about your area of expertise and research. Or even if you're not at that stage yet, you can still collate information from other experts in the field to, again, demonstrate, your research skills and being able to integrate information together and analyze. But I would say it's not just LinkedIn as a combination. You need to also have ORCID and ResearchGate, which are the equivalent of LinkedIn academic platforms as well, where you put your papers and your projects. But it's definitely something that we see gaining a lot more importance, a lot more tractions. A lot of jobs now, they advertised academic jobs on LinkedIn, so you can apply and find them from there. So I imagine those who start developing these skills now would have an advantage over those that haven't those digital skills.
Right, Emmanuel. And on that note, I have one more question for you. We speak about cold emailing, right? So there are a lot of scholars and students who send cold emails. So how effective is the cold email link strategy? Can you just, again, shed some light on that?
Not at all. Unfortunately, not at all. I'm still receiving so many, despite posts I make about how to do it. Okay, let me tell you now. You've written about that in post as well, Remark, quite a few times. If you met a stranger on the street and they ask you for a favor, for money, what would you do? Probably run the other direction and say, no, why should I give you money? Or why should I grant you a favor? This is exactly how it sounds when you send a cold email asking for a job position or asking for something. You establish a human relation, and then you ask. I would say give, and then ask. So your initial cold email should be part of a strategy, and it's not about asking at the start. It's about very briefly introducing yourself, and this is where LinkedIn comes. If you've got a LinkedIn account, you can point to that and say, actually, I post about it, and I would like to feature your work. Great. You've got some amazing posts for your LinkedIn, and at the same time, you create the connection. You can comment on some of the research they're doing or research they published. But again, I'll say it's a bit like dating. You want to be very specific. What is specific about their projects, their research, all the teaching that you find interesting. So you have those email communication. Then you can invite them to a short Zoom interview. You can find out more about the work, ways where you can collaborate, maybe co-author some written work. So then when you establish that relation and they've seen your work, it's very important. They know your work. They're more likely if there's an open position to say, actually, Rima, we are opening a position and I think you'll be great for that. I'll encourage you to apply. Or they could say, a colleague of mine in another institution is opening a position and I think you'll be great for it. Or even if you need a reference letter for another job you're applying, you've got someone to help you. So first establish the relationship and then ask for the favor. And I imagine would be the same in the industry.
Absolutely. I mean, we are all on the same page over there, and it's always pay attention to get attention. Give, give, give. That's what I keep saying in my networking strategies on LinkedIn too. On that note, quickly, I want to ask Sambit as well. Sambit, there are many messages floating on LinkedIn as to you can send cold emails to the hiring manager, right? So say there's a position open in your team, right? And someone sends a cold email to you with a subject line, say 3 reasons to hire me for this position, and they specify it, right? Would that be attention grabbing for you? How would you react to those kind of emails?
So as Emmanuel says, in industry, you don't really directly send a cold email to your hiring manager. You start with sending a LinkedIn request, chat about yourself, say, you project how your skills align with the company's objectives. Let's not, we all know why we are all on LinkedIn. So everybody is either looking for a job, somebody is offering a job. We are there to network. We are there to offer help. So if someone were to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I would assume that they're either looking for a job or they're asking for a favor, some sort of assistance, or to just good old-fashioned network. So either way, it works. So if someone were to, send me a connection request with a message saying that, I like the work that you do, and I would like to be in your networks. Great, no worries. And then later on, since the said person is now in my networks, and there is, say, an opening in my team, and say, for instance, this person has been communicating off and on with me, I would know, okay, so the requirements of my position aligns with his background. Obviously, I would reach out to him because I know of his, I don't want to sound rude, but I know of his existence because he has been communicating with me. I have, say, about 14,000, 15,000 followers on LinkedIn, but not everybody communicates with me. They send connection requests and then it's radio silence. But there are the odd few who would comment on my posts, who would send me personalized messages. So I know who they are and what they do. And some of them I've had long discussions with. So if something opens up, I know, okay, there is, Rima, who has a background in material science and she knows a bit of Python coding, and this is what we need for my team. So I would
Right.
reach out to you and I'll tell you, if this is something you're interested in, let me know. I can refer you to the hiring manager.
Yeah.
And it goes the same with, say, directly getting in touch with the hiring manager as well. There is absolutely no harm in reaching out to the hiring manager because hiring managers are also on LinkedIn, and nobody gets more job requests than hiring managers. And if they didn't want to get, connection requests from job seekers, they wouldn't be on LinkedIn. The
Right.
fact that they are on LinkedIn shows that they are open to receiving connection requests. They are open to looking for talent on LinkedIn, and they are willing to accept people who are potential, employers for their firm. So there's absolutely no harm in reaching out to hiring managers if you feel that you fit the bill. If you don't, rather not waste anybody's time, and no harm connecting, but make sure you reach out to them once you feel that you fit the bill.
Right. And on that note, also, Emmanuel confirmed this that the content that you put up on your timeline is something valuable. Okay. So one of the PhDs reached out to me and she thought this is the new Facebook. I said, no, if you know it the right way, it's not Facebook. It's the content that you put up over there. So both of you, Emmanuel and Sambit, one more time, because these are strategies, again, I teach inside my community, that the content you put up over there is valuable. Though people may not be, coming and engaging, but there are passive lurkers on LinkedIn who are constantly watching what you're doing. And that may include
Yes.
lab managers, that may include academicians. So on that
Absolutely.
note, yeah, so I just want to ask you, content creation again helps you to be on the top of mind of other people, right? Because you go and appear on their feed.
Yeah.
And sometimes if it's of something interesting, which is in your area of work, then it catches your attention and you remember that person, right? I want both of you
Exactly.
to confirm it. Yeah, because people don't get that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Go ahead,
It
Emmanuel.
does
Yeah,
it.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
It does indeed, but also it demonstrates other skills. It demonstrates you can integrate content. It demonstrates you're
Exactly.
aware of marketing.
Right.
It demonstrates a lot of soft skills that you cannot show through your CV. So it's win-win-win. Just out of the discussion we had, what is very powerful, and I think an advantage PhD students have, is they're great researchers. We know how to do research. So whether you're applying for a job in industry or academia, what is very powerful, even more powerful than a sterling CV, is to research some of the problems either the company or the research lab or the university you're applying has, the projects they're doing, the courses they're putting. And if you can provide a recommendation of how you could tackle or an idea you have to resolve that issue, then you'll definitely grab the attention of the hiring manager or the professor or the person who is in charge. That's the best way.
Right. And
Yeah,
Emmanuel,
on
you,
that.
yes, Sumit, please.
Yeah, I
Please.
just want to continue on that. So he's
Yeah,
absolutely
please.
right about this. I remember once when I was actually struggling to break into industry. For a long time, I felt that maybe it was the stuff I'm posting on LinkedIn that's hindering my industry transition. So I reached out to a few hiring managers randomly on LinkedIn, and I asked them, look, I create content on LinkedIn. I share my PhD stories. I mentor students who are interested in doing PhDs abroad. And I post success stories as well on LinkedIn. So when I post success stories, I say straight away that I charge for this mentorship. So would a hiring manager feel that because I am doing something like this on my own, that I don't really need a job and I should not be considered for a specific role? Do you think this backfires? Do you think me posting stories like these backfires on my chances? And I had a resounding no.
Yeah.
Every
Right.
single one who I reached out to said, it's good that you do it. People are noticing that you do it. It shows leadership skills. It shows that you have mentorship skills. It shows you have, as Emmanuel said, the other soft skills that you need to do well in an academic environment as well as in an industry environment. You have what it takes. So people are noticing. People notice when you post stories and share stories or content on LinkedIn. Everybody takes notice. It doesn't matter whether you're connected with the person or not. The algorithm is such that it reaches your feed. And
Yes.
I know there are a few master's students from my former university who post a lot of stories about their experiences. They share their perspectives, their views. I love it. It doesn't matter that they don't receive the kind of responses and reactions that some of the others do, but I always make a point to heart it, because I know if I heart it, then it'll reach at least some of my followers, and they should all read these. And it's
Absolutely.
good that
Yeah.
they reach out to a wider audience.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to add two things over there. First is Emmanuel uh, brought this word up, which is soft skills. Okay. So people don't realize that soft skills are so important. And when we are speaking about soft skills, they only think it's about your English speaking capability.
Mm.
But it's much more than that. When you're putting up a content on LinkedIn, it also shows your critical thinking skill. It also shows your
Exactly.
ability to, it shows your ability to give structure to a complex explanation, right? There are so many
100%.
things, and
Yeah.
how people are able to receive it in a simple manner. So there's a lot of thought process that's going on. And so soft
Yeah.
skills is not just limited to communication. It also shows your problem solving ability, right? So that's why I say inside my community, and I keep writing in my profile also, that I teach soft skills the hard way. But people misunderstand soft skills for just communication, which is much more than that, right? And the other thing, Samvit, you mentioned is that even though if no one is liking and engaging, if any of you are creating content here, it's not to get the likes and engagements, but it is to put your best content out there. And if you're doing it consistently, there is somebody who will notice it, right? And so on that note, I will end with this one question for both of you, and then we'll take questions from the audience here right now. This is about networking, okay? We as PhDs, most of us, when I ask in my sessions, where do you fit, introvert or extrovert? Most of them are introverts, and they associate that reason with not being good at networking. They easily say that extroverts are good at networking and not introverts. So I want you to shed light on that. So Emmanuel, maybe you can go first.
Yeah, and I would say that I used to be an introvert as well. I mean, maybe some people still describe that. It's a matter of practice,
Emmanuel,
like
but I'm sorry for interrupting you over there.
Sure.
I'll just remove you from spotlight, and I'll ask in the room how many of you think that you are all introverts. So I'll just remove everybody from the spotlight. Just raise your hand if you think you are an introvert. I am an introvert. Okay, Siddhant says he's an introvert. Okay. Okay. Great, great. So we have a couple of people, see, and the numbers are going up, right? Yeah, so most PhDs, I believe, are introverts in the world. Okay. Okay. So Emmanuel, on that note, I want you to continue. And I don't know where is Sambit gone. Just give me a second.
Sure.
Uh,
Hopefully he's
in,
somewhere here. Maybe popped out for a minute
I'm
and
trying
he'll
to
join.
spotlight you first.
Sure.
Sambit, are you
Okay.
around? Sambit, I can't see you. I think he has logged out for some reason.
Okay, I'll make a
Emmanuel.
start while
Yes,
we wait
please,
for
please.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yes, I was an introvert, especially during my PhD, but then realized that networking is one of the top skills that you require, whatever you want to do, whether it is research papers, whether it is research grants, whether it is teaching, whether it is promotions, getting a job, but also in your personal life as well.
Mhm.
And I did a few things. I've studied some people that they were seen as extroverts. There is an amazing book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win and Make Friends. It was written many years ago. I highly recommend to everyone. It has some guidelines there about human relations and how to actually engage and win people over. Another thing I actively did was join improv classes. This was because I was an introvert, and also sometimes I struggle in conversations on what to say or how to initiate conversations and how to engage. So I went for improvisation theatrical classes, which was really fun, and that made a change also in the way I present myself, but also engage with others. So there's always things you can do. The most important thing is that shift in the mindset about realizing the importance of networking. Yeah, so I wish I have done that earlier.
Okay. Okay. So Sambit got kicked out of the meeting because of a technological glitch that I wasn't aware of. Seems like I knocked him out of the meeting, but something I
Okay.
clicked I wasn't aware of. So he will be joining us in a short while. And in the meantime, Emmanuel, with your permission, I'm going to remove you from the spotlight. And the questions, we are open for the questions. So any of you, whoever has questions, please raise your hand and we will be taking your questions. So Nayana, Vanita, and Surbi and Piyush, is your hands raised because you're an introvert or you have a question? I'm not really sure. So please, yes, Piyush, you seem to have a question.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Rima. So I have
Yeah.
a question to the manual that what we actually while communicating
Piyush,
or
I'm just interrupting you. Is your question for Sambit? You said for the manager?
no, for Emmanuel also it will work, I
Okay,
think.
go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So Emmanuel, so I just thinking that many a time what inhibition happens that while networking, we know that the we are approaching the uh, hello. Yeah. So we are approaching the person or the hiring manager. They are also aware that we are approaching them for the job only, or whether there are all sort of communication we are doing and we are beating around the bush. But still, there is this thing that we are doing it. So inhibition is that how, I mean, there is an inhibition that it looks so. All the things very non-spontaneous or dramatic actually in the mind. So how to come out of that bottleneck actually, that inhibition from inside that, so do they take it positively when we communicate with them, or it's like they also know that we are asking them or we are telling about ourselves because we want to have a job or something like that, it's very obvious also many a time.
Sure, that's a very good question. Just to clarify that in academia, we don't have hiring managers. It's very different to the industry where you will contact hiring managers and then they will be in touch with someone who is hiring. In academia, you have the professors or senior or associate professors that they would be working with the HR to set the jobs, and they will be called the post holder. So they're the ones that you can contact to find more information about the job or to ask questions. It's generally considered good when you do that. So for instance, at the end of every academic job advert, there is the name of an academic, and they say, if you have any more questions about this job, this is the academic person to contact. It's definitely a good thing to do that, and all the mentees I work with I've shared them some of my secrets on how to engage with a post holder and the importance it is for three main things. First of all, you demonstrate visibility. From the hundreds of applications that receive, very few will actually engage with them. Then you ask for a short meeting or permission to send email where you can ask further questions. And with those questions, you demonstrate your genuine interest and you gain some more insights that you can use in your application. So it's a win in all situations. But that's when you contact the post holder, which is named under job adverts. Not cold emailing, just emailing random professions saying, I'm looking for a postdoc. Have you got a postdoc? That doesn't work. What works though is if you have a list of, this is the institutions I would like to work, and this is the professors or the academics that in the future would be great to collaborate or connect with. And you start connecting them now and engaging, as we said before, with finding out more about the work, sharing about the work you're doing. So when a position opens, you are in a strong position, having established that relationship, to ask for it or to be referred to. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you, man. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Piyush. And I think we are well past our 1 hour mark. So we're going to take the 4 questions we have the hands raised for, and we are going to make a hard stop there because of the time that we are running out of right now. Is there an echo happening from my end?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that started all of a sudden. Just give me a second. Let me just. Is it any better?
Yeah. It's fine.
Okay, so Maria, you can go ahead with your question, please.
Thank you. I have a question also for Emmanuel. I just finished my PhD last year and I'm trying and struggling to find a postdoc. I would like to know how harmful could be to not being able to establish a postdoc and having a break between the finish of my PhD through the possible postdoc. I would like to know if I want to go into the academia, they check if there's a timeline that it's going from one position to another, or if I can take it easy because it's kind of frustrating when you are applying and the position doesn't come. And also I want to know if thinking about a postdoc, if you can change from the main issue that you research in your PhD and find a postdoc in something that is unrelated, or if that is not going to work. Thank you.
Sure. Just to answer quickly both of your questions, it's fine to have a short break. The reason is, the key question is, what do you do during that break? So if you use that break to develop some of the skills, that then will help you with either getting the postdoc or getting an assistant professorship, then by all means. Another question is, do you need a postdoc? Because if you already have the publications, if you've got some grant writing experience, and if you've got a teaching portfolio, then depending the field you're in, you can go straight to an assistant professorship if you've got the skills. So that's another thing to consider. Changing the field, it depends on how radical the shift is in the skills. What PIs, so when I get a research project, what I'm looking when I hire postdoc is who would be the best person to work as part of the project team and to help realize what we said we're going to do for this research project. So we'll be looking at the skills they have, what other research they've done. And sometimes you'll be looking more at the, and not necessarily the depth of field, but the research skills they have and how that fits the project as a whole. So it is possible, but it depends on the nature of the project.
Thank you.
Maria, I hope that answered your question. Is my audio still causing any problem? It's good now? Okay, great. I have some direct messages on the chat, and some of them are questions related to not able to clear interviews. Simranjeet, Sambit does help in that regard when it comes to PhDs, applying for PhDs outside. So please, I would request you to get in touch with Sambit through LinkedIn. And then Ahmad has a question. Can one publish and teach in subjects other than PhD topics? Can one finish PhD in 2 years if we already have a master's degree? I believe those are questions that you already know answers to.
Mm.
Maybe you should look within for the answers, and that's not for the panel to answer. And let's move to Harshal with that. Harshal, can you unmute and ask your question?
Hello, I'm
And
like,
Harshal, I'd request you to keep your question short and sweet, and then we take question from Deepti and Vanita. Yes, Harshal.
yes, I have a question from Samvit. Actually, two questions. One is like, when I have been trying to break into industry for last 4 months. Okay, so I have been every time for based on applications, I've been every time updating my resume. So would you recommend leaving chunks of skills that you have acquired through your PhD outside? Like, is it fine if we leave a chunk of skills, though we have, or should we demonstrate that? And the second question is like more controversial, but how do you deal with ghosting after interview?
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks for asking these really crucial questions for any industry transitions. Let me start with the second one, the ghosting. You move on. If someone's ghosted you, you send a few reminders, and if you've still been ghosted, move on. It's not worth it, and it's not worth working for a company where they treat you like that. So that's just the bottom line. If someone's ghosting you after a couple of months, despite frequent reminders, ask yourself if you want to be associated with people like that. Now, about your first question, as Emmanuel had so clearly mentioned in his earlier segment, that you've got to tailor your CV precisely according to the job description. So if the job description says that we need someone who's experienced in, say C programming or Python or R, he or she has experience in some sort of data management or some sort of experience in semiconductor fabrications. You highlight relevant skills in your CV. You highlight relevant projects which you've done, which aligns with the bullets that they've listed out in the job description. If you've done something which is completely unrelated, do mention it, but you don't need to go into details. Like if the position is for a semiconductor fabrication engineer and you have experience in cell cultures, obviously it doesn't make sense in giving whole details about what you did in your cell culture, because that is not relevant to the position. But you can mention that you have experience working in a biology lab as well. So it shows that you have worked in a cross-functional environment. You're okay working with different teams, tackling different themes, which is important in an industry setting. But when it comes to your core competencies, make sure you highlight them right up front in your CV. The other ones can take arrange your competencies based on priorities according to the job description.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you, Samvit.
No worries.
Thank you, Harshal, for that question. And Deepti and Vanita, those are the last two questions we have to take for today. I know there are a lot of questions coming in my direct messages, and it's because
LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn. Come connect on LinkedIn. Please
Yes,
ask
LinkedIn.
us. Say that you were a part of this session and ask a crisp and quick question, guys. It takes a lot of effort. If the question is too long, it's difficult to answer, right? So we don't know what to answer if the question is too long. So make it crisp. And Deepti, we move on to you. Please, Deepti, quickly your question.
Hello everyone. So my name is Dipti. My question is for Emmanuel. So actually my question is something similar to Maria. So I have completed my PhD in 2022 and took a break, and meanwhile I moved to another country, and then again I had to shift my country for permanently. So meanwhile I lost 1 year. So my question is, how can I show the career gap in a positive way in my CV? Because I was learning and scaling my actually the skills. I have done everything in numerical simulation, so I was upskilling all those things. So how can I show it in a positive way in my CV? That's my question.
Thanks, Dipti. Yeah, it's a good question, and you do exactly what you said. You demonstrate in your CV, and especially in your cover letter, what you did during the period, and you make it sound like it was purposeful. So it wasn't an accident. You always talk in terms of positive terms, not negative. So it wasn't the struggles you faced in terms of it was you decided to go to a different country to learn new skills and to experience different cultures or different research cultures. And as part of that, you spend X amount of time focusing on this project that led you to develop those skills, or could develop publications or other things that you can showcase. So tell them a story in a positive terms on how you make what you make during that period and make it sound strategic. You know, it was for a specific purpose. The hiring committee is going to appreciate that. It's going to again think, oh, this is someone that actually takes leadership and they go for what they want to do.
Thank you very much, sir. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepti. With that, we move to the last question from Vanita. Vanita, are you here?
Yeah.
Yes,
Hello,
go
everyone.
ahead.
Thank you, everyone, for such an informational session. I have a very quick question. Like, suppose, like, I have a gap in my career, and now I want to show to the recruiters that that gap was for something useful. And if I want to gain certain skills, if I'm looking into the requirements of the company, and they need certain skills which are based on technical expertise. Like, for example, if I say they want expertise in some instrumentation, I don't know how to get those skills because I had a gap. I was not working. So in that gap, I can only accumulate skills which are available online or through reading or something like that. So how to fill that gap and balance that?
Vanita, that question was for who? Sambit, Emmanuel, or me?
Anyone who can answer.
Okay, so Sambit, would you like to take that?
Yeah,
This isn't a
that is a
straightforward thing.
toughie.
Yes, it's not a straightforward one.
It's a toughie because you know it is what it is. No matter whatever the situation was that resulted in you not being able to get certain core skills, and the gaps are evident in your CV. Yeah, okay. There's nothing much you can do about that. You need to just convince your hiring manager that you are good at
Sorry,
what you
I'll
do.
just interrupt
Without-
over here. Yes, I do understand that when we talk to the hiring manager, then definitely we can convince them that instrument learning is not that tough and anyone can learn if given proper training and proper time. But how to reach that stage where you can actually convey this message to them? Because from CV, if that skill is missing, how to exactly either, like, if you're suggesting ki we need to contact the hiring manager and then convey this
Yeah.
message, or how exactly?
Yeah, so this is where networking comes into play. It's very, very
Yes.
important that you network with the right people. You either network with the hiring manager or you network with the head of the team into which the role is being recruited for. Or you get in touch with people who are in the same team as well, if not the head in the same team. You talk to them, you let them know, and you try to connect with as many people as you can. And what's going to happen then is one person, that's all it takes. All it takes is one person getting in touch with the hiring manager, telling them that it's okay, let's give it a shot, call her for an interview. Because your objective is to get interviewed. You don't want to get rejected at the screening stage itself. So for that, you have to network. And Emmanuel and me, we've both discussed this in quite details about the importance of networking. And it gets you places. And it's old school, but it is effective. It works. You are going to get a lot of non-responsive people. You are going to get a lot of cold shoulders. You are going to get a lot of people who will tell you, please apply through the link. There's nothing much we can do. That shouldn't stop you from networking and reaching out and sending people a message. And when you send a connection request, you get 300 characters to drop in a message as well. Use it. Tell them why you're connecting. Don't send a random connection request with no foundations. If you send them a connection request with the 300 characters well used and accounted for, they know why you're sending them a friend. Why am I saying friend request? A connection request. And this is what's going to help you, because if a person's accepting your request with the message, they know what they're getting into. They know what they're going to be dealing with. And that's a start for you.
Okay, Sambit,
Sambit?
now, Vanita, I am really afraid now that because of the
No,
time,
not an
I'll
issue. I'll
make
directly connect on
Yes,
LinkedIn.
please.
Thank you so much.
And I would, with your permission, Sambit and Emmanuel's permission, I'm removing you from the spotlight right now. And I want...
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Oh,
The
no.
last time I removed Sambit from the spotlight, he was knocked out of the meeting.
I have serious PTSD now.
Oh, he's here, great.
I've never been kicked out from a room before. This is the first time. I'm like, oh my God.
There's a first time for everything. Maybe you can make a post about it now, okay?
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'll go talk to my therapist about my PTSD now.
Okay. So on that note, guys, it was great having you. And there are some takeaways that I'm sure all of you are going away with, but there are certain things I just want to recap. The first one is the impact of networking. Everyone, both Sambit and Emmanuel, be it academy, be it industry, both said that networking is the key to get to your next stop. And the next thing is working on your soft skills apart from your technical skills too. So be it connecting with people, be it communicating rightly, that comes with writing your resume, cover letter, everything. So it's a whole package that you need to get right. And on that note, I would like all of you to show us some appreciation by giving a thumbs up if you think this session was useful, because it required a lot of back-end work and everything. So show us some emojis and some thumbs up. And if you can come up on the screen, and I'll just take a screenshot of this whole thing. So can I have everyone smiling photos, please? And let me just give a thumbs up and take a screenshot. Okay, thank you so much. Just give me a second. Yeah, I am done. And with that, we look forward to hosting one more session. And I would end this session with just one word from Emmanuel and something from Sambit. If you were to summarize this whole session and one takeaway that people should go away with, Emmanuel, starting with you, and then Sambit, and we end the meeting today.
Sure. First of all, thanks, Rima, for organizing this, and pleasure to doing that with Sambit, and nice to meet you, Sambit, as well. One message that I'd like to leave to all, everyone here, and especially PhD students: you're very resilient. You've got the skills and what it needs to take. If your plan doesn't work, it's not because of the skills, it's because of the strategy. So if you're applying and it's not working, either in academia or in industry, you need a plan B. Get in touch with someone that can help, and get in touch with someone who's been there and done that. And they would help you to reach your goals. Thank you.
And by now in this panel, which it could be anyone of us, Emmanuel, me, or Sambit. Okay. Yeah, Sambit, your
Thanks again, Rima, for arranging this amazing session. And Emmanuel, likewise, it was a pleasure meeting you. And it was a pleasure interacting with all of you, to be honest. And if there's one thing which I would want, I would like you guys to take away from this is, if it's industry that you're targeting, start early, network, and network right. When I say that, you're in a PhD. By the time you're in your third year, you should have an idea where you're headed next. And if it's industry, go through the job descriptions, see what skills you have, and see what skills you need to acquire, and go get it.
Thank you once again, Emmanuel, Sambit, and all of you for making this session so precious. I promise we'll come back with some more in near future. And my sincere apologies that I could not take all the questions, but you can reach out with those questions to any of us, and we'll be happy to answer. Have a great evening, morning, or afternoon, all of you. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thanks, everyone.